actually I was feeling really confident by that stage. At the last day, again, because it was mid-afternoon, I only had a couple of more hours to go until last light. And I'd been there all day in a drainage culvert. There'd been vehicles crossing over. You could hear the kids and all that sort of stuff in the fields. And I know I only had a couple of kilometres to go, and I had all night to negotiate the border. But when the Land Cruisers came over, there was always a point where I'd start to flap a bit, because you could hear the vehicles, hear them trundle over, and what I wanted to hear was them carrying on. And these ones didn't. Stum went over and Stum stopped short. And then there was a period of, you think, your mind it divides in half. There's one half saying, right, well, you're compromised, that's it, you're in the shit. And the other half saying, well, no, let's just wait. No, it might not be. They might just be stopping. But actually, no, they're stopping because they've seen you. Because of their war that they fought with Iran, they had 10 years of conflict with these people. So their interrogation techniques developed into a more physical type interrogation. Because of the quality of the troops they were interrogating, so they couldn't actually play mind games. They couldn't really sort of go into that sort of sophisticated arena. So what happened was that it just used to be lack of food, lack of sleep, exposure to the elements, and getting beaten up. So that was their techniques. Now, I was aware of those techniques. Certainly because the part of the policy in the regiment is that you get briefings of what's going on in the world and what's happening, and the different techniques are used. But the thing that helped me was listening to an American pilot who came to give a talk in Hereford, and he was in the Vietnam War. He was a Phantom pilot. He had 3 more missions to go, and that would have been the end of his trip. He was on his 77th sortie, and he got shot down. Landed up in Hanoi and had 6 years in solitary confinement. And during that time, he was constantly tortured. Every major bone in his body had been broken at some stage, and his body just repaired itself. So his legs are quite warped, and he's got no teeth, no hair, horrendous scarring. He's got no muscle mass on his arse because he was just constantly beaten with bamboos and lost all of his muscle mass. But he was still alive. And what he said, listening to him, was that whatever people do physically, you've got no control over that, so you must accept it. So what you've got to do is put all efforts into keeping the integrity of your mind, so you're keeping this intact. And then that way you win, because what happens, just the slightest little victory is magnified tenfold, and that actually builds up, and you can actually defeat the situation you're in. There is no wrong or right. The fact of the matter is, there's, certainly the officers were intelligent people. They had a job to do. There's one or two who enjoyed it too much, which was totally out of the sort of scenario. But the fact that there was a job to do, they wanted to find out information, and certainly the way that they conduct their interrogations, that's how they don't think it's morally wrong at all, and that's fine. There's rules in warfare. There's a set of guidelines, but the fact that they decided not to keep to those rules, because they have no history of keeping to any rule whatsoever. So that you just accept that. You accept what's going to go on. Some of the interrogators, and there's one now who lives in the UK now. The fact is that was their job. There's just 2 individuals who were doing it for their own motives. They were doing it. Now, whether their family's been killed or whatever, I don't know. They're the 2 I'd like to see. We used to get bombed every night, because obviously Baghdad were taking hits every night, and sometimes we take hits in the compound. And there was at the time, certainly on it's about sort of day 4 or day 5 of when it's sort of the interrogation started to get serious, and actually wanted it to end. And I thought, well, if we can take a direct hit, and then it'd be all sort of cracked, because we're going to be dead anyway. But there was that couple of days where I thought, well, everybody is gone now, so I'm being kept behind. So what's going to happen? But then there was the technical side of me saying, well, that's okay. At the end of the day, I'll still be alive, and what is 5 years out of a life? And it's that'll be okay. So technically, you look at it that way. But emotionally, I didn't want to be sort of, best mates with Terry Waite at Christmas, sort of, strapped to some radiator somewhere. But then your survival instinct kicks in. You say, well, okay, well, just wait and see. And what is 5 years? What is 10 years? It's a lot, but it's not your whole life. and then you try and make it better for you, but actually it doesn't, because in the back of your brain, and certainly in your heart, you're like, shit, let's just wait and see what happens there. So it was a constant sort of conflict. When we got back, the army psychologist turned up and started to take us through these tests and sessions, and it became apparent that it was our sort of next of kin that needed the therapy as opposed to us, because they were always left in the dark. They knew that we were missing. At one stage they were told we're probably dead, so they had all this uncertainty. At least we knew and they didn't. There's certain things that do remind me of it. It's I don't know, certainly up and over garage doors in a big way, because that's how the door used to sound in the cell. And I don't like the sound of TD lamps, pressure lamps. The noise that was constantly there when the guards would walk up the corridor was the noise of the TD lamps. So I don't really like that. But the fact of waking up with nightmares hasn't happened. And I think that what certainly happened to the three of us that were put together once we'd got out of the interrogation centre was all put in a cell together, and that's where we stayed. And all we done was talk about what happened. And maybe, I actually believe it now, I think we went through a form of therapy. What the intention always has been is not to have a traditional war film. There's a lot more ingredients than just that. We didn't want to show that it was a sort of a chest out for Queen and Country. That actually these people are normal people. They've got normal lives, and the reason they do it is because they're professional soldiers, and that's what they do. So there's no right or wrong. The story itself is running concurrent with the book, and there hasn't been sort of great big invented sort of different scenarios or different conflicts, or it's because that's pointless. That actually gets away from the story, and what I wanted it to be is what it is an entertaining document. A lot of the offers that were coming in for Bravo 20, basically they just wanted the title, and then it would be used for their own agendas or as a vehicle for somebody, for an actor. I didn't really want that, because you got the families of the people who are dead, you got the people who are alive, and again we're all emotionally sort of part of this thing, and I wanted it portrayed correctly. So in fact the BBC were the ones who offered the least amount of money, but what they wanted to do was to have a truthful sort of a reenactment of the story, and that's why I sort of hit it off with the BBC really. The script was done in the UK, so that was quite intensive. That was quite a busy couple of months to get a good script. Once that was done, we all went to South Africa and started filming in the desert. And basically was there as a consultant, so I was there every day on set, and it ranged from talking with Tom Clegg, the director. I'd say things like, well, you'd actually be more spread out like that, and he says, well, I know that, but I can't do it unless I different camera angles. So basically he understood what it would really look like, and then he would use his skill to make it look like that, and really working with the actors, training the actors so they look like they've been sort of handling these weapons for years, getting hold of the equipment, the uniforms, and making the weapons look old, and really sort of into that, which the actors wanted, because they want to do a good a job as possible, because they because it's real people they're playing, they find that very difficult, because they want to do it as best as possible. So you'd sit down and talk to them about what these people were like, how they would sort of react to certain things, what they would say, and sort of do that in the evenings, and then in the day just be on the set.